time now to go to the one, the only, the prolific author, the trend seer, the forecaster, unparalleled, Jim Rickards.
Great to be with you, Max.
Welcome to 2018.
Thank you.
Are you enjoying it so far?
So far, so good, but we'll see how it ends up. It could be the year of living dangerously.
All right, so let's get through some questions here, because you are, without a doubt, got your finger on the pulse in terms of trends and the intersection between markets and other things. And so you're a good guy to talk to about what we may be seeing in the next year or two. Now, one trend, obviously, is artificial intelligence. You've got a boom, with self-driving cars, chatbot apps. What's happening in AI? How big a market is it? Where it's going?
Well, I mean, it's potentially unlimited. This is AI is now where what we call third wave, third generation AI. So the first generation was kind of big data and simple algorithms. A second generation was deep learning, where the machine could teach itself, but its output would become input that would basically expand the capability of the machine. Third wave is now building these fuzzy cognitive networks and getting inputs from other sources, particularly IBM's Watson machine, which is it's not the fastest computer, but it's the fastest computer that can read the volume of plain language that it does in 8 different languages. So now it's like having 1,000 analysts working 24 hours a day, actually maybe 10,000 analysts. You can't replicate that with humans, but you can do it with machines. So now you bring that amount of data in with meaning, the machine learning combined with the original big data and the algorithms, and it's very powerful.
It sounds like a good name for a punk band, Fuzzy Cognitive Network.
Yeah, FCN.
Do you play any instruments?
I don't. My children are talented.
Not even a tambourine?
I probably wouldn't be able to keep a beat, so.
Okay, let's ask about what this does to the workforce, because obviously if you have self-driving cars, and truck drivers, for example, is a huge workforce in America.
Yeah.
We're bringing in self-driving trucks. What happens to the workforce?
I think there are structural problems with the workforce that have nothing to do with technology and what we're talking about. They do have to do with education and training, the opioid crisis. There are a lot of structural headwinds. But as far as this technology is concerned, it doesn't displace as many people as a lot of people think. For example, let's say you're a nurse's aide, and there's certain tasks that you do, and you can automate those. It doesn't mean you get rid of the nurse's aide. It just means the nurse's aide has more time for sort of, more personal care, other kinds of observations, et cetera. So, the computer keeps getting better and the aide keeps getting better. So the quality of the care goes up. It doesn't mean that person doesn't have a job. It just means that they might, pivot a little bit or have different skills that the machine can't match. So I don't see it displacing.
When I look at an Amazon warehouse and it's 10,000 robots, those aren't people, those are robots.
Well, a lot of drivers out there, and there are people in those warehouses, and they're working pretty hard. So you're right about.
Do you think it's overstated?
Yes, you're right about the robotics and the automation. You're absolutely right about that. But it's not displacing as many jobs as you suggest. It's actually making those jobs more productive. However, there are structural problems in the workforce, but I don't think it comes from robots. As I say, it comes from education or lack of education, a lack of opportunity, lack of labor mobility, bad tax policy, and I would not underestimate the impact of the opioid crisis.
So, that's the second time you've mentioned the opioid crisis. What's going on there, Jim? What do you mean the opioid crisis?
Well, I think it's been very well covered, but the point is this addiction is very widespread. So if you're a serious addict, you can't hold a job. If you're a recovering addict, you might not be able to get a job. Or if you're a closet addict, you might be on the job and performing dangerously, and that affects productivity. It also affects, there are all these...
Who's to blame for the opioid crisis?
The big drug companies and the doctors and the pharmacies that all played along with it. Tens of billions of dollars of profits have been made. I mean, just a really simple example. So you get some oral.
So what penalties should be paid? We know. How do you address that? What do you do?
Well, we actually have a pretty good civil tort system in this country. So this is going to play out like the tobacco crisis. These companies are going to. I know friends with some of the big class action lawyers, and they're circling the wagons.
Okay. So you like technology?
Yeah, sure.
You're a big technology fan? You like markets?
I like
markets.
I like markets. I like technology. I like technology in markets. So all of the above. But I'm also wary of some of the downsides.
Well, what about these new Bitcoin futures, Jim? They're Bitcoin futures. Okay? Yeah. So Bitcoin has popped over the Wall Street divide. They've got Bitcoin futures. Jamie Dimon has come out, as a fraud. You're taking the same position as Jamie Dimon, which I know you must love that.
Well, I've gone beyond. I say it's a fraud, a Ponzi, and a mania all at the same time.
Okay, but the futures contracts. What is walk us through then? If the Wall Street hates Bitcoin. Some of it does.
I think
some of it does.
Wall Street likes anything that makes money, and
Okay.
Bitcoin futures make money. Yeah. See, the Bitcoin crowd, when they saw that the Chicago Board Options Exchange and CME were listing Bitcoin futures, they see this validates it, blah, blah, blah. That's not true. They're out to make money.
But is it a self-fulfilling prophecy? In other words, it's its own prophecy. It starts trading Bitcoin futures. People are now paying their employees in Bitcoin. You know, so it's becoming a unit of account. It's becoming a currency in this way. And doesn't it? You're an analytics and data meister. Do you see in your work how this could transform the global markets as we know it?
Well, I was very privileged to meet the man who came up with the phrase self-fulfilling prophecy, Robert K. Merton, probably
Really?
the greatest sociologist of the 20th century. If there were a Nobel Prize in sociology, which there isn't, he would have won it hands down.
And long-term capital management.
Well,
and you were their chief legal counsel.
That was his son.
You oversaw the liquidation. Did you?
I met Robert K. Merton as a professor emeritus at Columbia, but his son, Robert C. Merton, who did win the Nobel Prize, was one of our partners. That's how I met his father.
Okay.
So he came up with the phrase self-fulfilling prophecy. But the point is, it can be good or bad. A bank run is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Bitcoin prices going up is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Bitcoin prices going to $200 can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's basically, crowd behavior, cascades, what's called an icing hypersynchronous event.
Well, sometimes it becomes the new reality, the new norm. The printing press, for example, was a great little technology at the time, and your beloved Catholic Church was kind of like wiped out in a lot of ways because of the printing press.
Well, the Catholic Church is stronger than ever, but here's the thing about it. The printing press is the perfect analog because this is where Bitcoin fans, let's call them, really confuse the public. You have to separate the coin and the technology. The printing press is a technology. A printing press can produce a Bible or it can produce pornography. So one's good, one's bad. But they all come off the same printing press.
But you need paper and the press.
So I have
Bitcoin, the blockchain and the validation of the chain through the coin are pari passu. They are interlinked. They are one. It is the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, if you will, of the movement that is this currency.
No, I would say that Bitcoin is a currency, and I'll agree it's a kind of currency. It depends on the blockchain. Blockchain has a future, Bitcoin does not. By the way, with regard to the Bitcoin future, is a very interesting point. I noticed the other day that the price on Bitcoin futures are cash settles. There's no actual Bitcoin involved. It's just people making bets, and you get a cash payoff. Okay, so it's like going to the racetrack. But the Bitcoin futures, there was a huge divergence to the Bitcoin price listed on the exchanges. That's rare because there's an arbitrage opportunity there. It's the oldest trade in the book. When that happens, you sell the future, you buy the physical. The fact that that was not converging tells me there's no liquidity in the physical because you couldn't do the trade.
Yeah, it's an inefficient market at this time. It's a new market, and we're certainly seeing some big growth in that market. Let's talk a little geopolitics here. So North Korea, 2018 hot zone. What's going on?
Yeah, hot zone. A very high probability of war. Now, there's probably get past the Olympics. There are some channels being opened up between North Korea and the United States, and that's a good thing. But there are really only there are three outcomes. One is Kim Jong-un gets assassinated. There's regime change. We could probably only do that with the help of the Chinese. Pretty clear the Chinese are not on board. So I give that maybe a 20% probability, but you can't make it zero. So the other two probabilities, one is Kim Jong-un stands down. He verifiably, voluntarily gives up his weapons development programs, invites in inspectors, etc. I give that maybe a 10% chance. He's not going to do it. He might pretend, but he's been lying for 25 years. This has been dumped in Trump's lap, but it's really the fault of Clinton, Bush, and Obama.
How do you rate Tillerson?
I like Tillerson. I think he's doing a good job under difficult circumstances. I know he's kind of, knocks heads with the president a little bit, but I personally rate him very highly. I think he's the right man for the job. I mean, when you're the CEO of Exxon, you are the Secretary of State in some ways. I mean, he goes around, meets heads of state, and considers diplomacy. I think
they have their own intelligence security apparatus, Exxon.
Of course, absolutely.
Parallel to in size to the U.S. government.
And probably better in some ways.
Right. Let's talk about gold. Okay, gold, of course, getting back to, before Bitcoin, people used gold. And but it's still around. Russia's buying a lot of gold, right? So there's huge geopolitics still going on. You were one of the first guys to come out and identify that a country like Russia, by buying lots of gold, is giving themselves some strategic advantages going forward.
Sure.
Because if we have a collapse in the current monetary system, fiat currency system, and we go back to something equating to a gold standard, Russia and other countries, China,
Right.
are going to be in good shape. What's the update on that?
Well, Elvira Nabiullina is the head of the Central Bank of Russia. Is my favorite central banker in the world. I think he's really smart, doing a lot of things right. But what was interesting is that beginning in the middle of 2014 through the beginning of 2017, of course, the price of oil collapsed, went from about $100 a barrel, low of about 25. Now it's, up around a little bit closer to 60, but still a collapse from where it was. Russia's reserves, in round numbers, went from about $500 billion to $300 billion. So that's a 40% decline in the reserves. During that entire time, she kept buying gold. She never sold an ounce of gold. She sold euros, she sold dollars, she sold treasuries, did whatever she had to do, but they kept buying gold. So I was very impressed with that. It's a smart move. The metric I use is that Russia's closing in on 2,000 tons. The U.S. has 8,000 tons approximately. So the U.S. is 4 times bigger, but the U.S. economy is 12 times bigger. So if you look at the gold to GDP ratio, which is how I measure it, Russia is twice as strong as the United States. It's not just Russia, it's also
Gold to GDP is high.
Gold to GDP in Russia is double the United States, which is a source of strength. China's not there yet because their economy is much larger, but they're acquiring gold.
Why don't they cut the ruble loose and let it trade freely? There was, hand-wringing about, the ruble's dying, it's crashing, but that turned out to be a good move.
Well, they've allowed the ruble to trade pretty freely, but they're doing it with a good central banker. This is in the 90s. This is in Yeltsin when the ruble collapsed. They have much better central bank management today, and as I say, they're in a much stronger gold position. But we talked earlier in one of our interviews about Russia and China and others working on a distributed ledger technology, basically a coin, not Bitcoin, but some token, some digital coin with heavy encryption, et cetera, that they could use to make payments between and among themselves, settle balance of payments, bypass the IMF, bypass the SWIFT.
Well, that coin already exists. It's called Ripple. Ripple is a coin used in the banks right now to move value all across the world. It's a pre-mined coin.
Yeah, they're likely to develop their own coin, but be that as it may, using distributed ledger technology. But the point is, they're combining the old and the new. Gold is one of the oldest forms of money, if not the oldest form of money. Digital cryptocurrencies are the newest form of money. They'll actually be using both. Gold for source of strength, digital cryptocurrencies for convenience and ease of payment. And then, I warn my colleagues they're always like, use dollar sanctions, use dollar sanctions. And be careful what you wish for. They do work in the short run, but they're going to force people to do the work.
Innovate.
And that's happening.
Okay, I'll put you on the spot quickly. Do you have a number for gold in 2018 where it's headed?
It's headed higher.
Higher?